healing towards joy and the art of voice. As Rochelle mentioned, we're a collective of coaches, of artists, of therapists. Where part of our mission is to ensure no one gets left outside the circle of care and that we all have access to the mental health and healing that we need. We're going to introduce ourselves a little bit more, and thanks, Rochelle, for those beautiful intros. Y'all already mentioned how you're rhyming. If you want to re-articulate that. And Preena, you want to jump in?
Of course. Nice to be here with all of you. I think there's a little bit of an echo. I don't know if I'm the only one who can hear it.
Might be because performance mode is on, so let me just turn that off whilst we don't have the, yeah, turning that off.
Thank you, Mel.
Of course.
Awesome. Technology, right? All right. So, yes, just like Mel has said, I know we've sort of already articulated in one word, but even if you wanted to give it a gesture, or a sound, or if there's a song that's bringing you joy, you can definitely put that in the comments, or you can unmute and actually have your voice heard. Don't be afraid.
And we'll read things as they come through chat. We know that it can feel a little bit about a podcast when you are a keynote speaker, but we really welcome your authenticity and interactivity in the session. I see from Renee, nervous but excited. What else is coming up for folks? I'll be.
Jules, interested?
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Hmm. I'm also feeling excited and nervous. Seeing also another comment. Settled, more inspired, beautiful, defying gravity. That's a
Oh
fun.
yes, I just watched Wicked, so excited for part two as well.
You can feel free to keep writing over chat, y'all, as we introduce ourselves. I know it can be sometimes neurodivergent, need time to process and let the questions land. So feel free to keep your answers coming. But just to provide, and thank you, Julie, inspired and open to learning, to provide a more illustrative expression of who we are, I recently gave a keynote where I was reflecting on how do you begin to capture the humanity of who we each are in less than 30 seconds. I come with you with many different experiences from product and operations and strategy. I love my family. I love surfing, teaching yoga, and playing ukulele, which may have a guest appearance later in our session, and just so grateful to be here in this aligned value of authenticity and trauma informed leadership. And thank you, Renee, who I met through a podcast about 6 or 8 months ago. Hard to remember exactly.
And I am so excited to be here with all of you. I am definitely first and foremost an artist and performer. I think I was dancing in my mom's womb. And, I really love my family, my puppies, and I love doing the work that I do in emotional intelligence and leadership trainings with teens and adults. So I'm really excited to be here.
Hmm. And this is our first time really talking about this in a more public setting. So thank you for seeing us, y'all. In part, what brought Preena and I together was this shared research passion for empowering survivors of sexual violence. We're doing collaborative research, and in the States, it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we really try to come from a survivor informed, trauma informed perspective and really centering the voices of folks who may have felt they didn't have a voice. So thank you. And seeing all the survivors in the room, feel free to direct message us or even write over chat and share how you're arriving.
Yes.
Oh, feels so good to be out and proud about that, y'all.
Yes.
That is part of what it means to heal towards joy. You're like, yay, I'm a survivor. And really celebrating all of the things that uniquely make us us, As Richard Schwartz, psychologist, says, there are no bad parts, and welcoming all of the things that make us human. So when we talk about joy, we're not talking about maybe where you probably noticed we're from the States, California specifically, forgot to mention that. This toxic American positivity, it's joy in being seen in the authenticity of who you are, feeling connected to others. I feel so connected to this room, even though y'all are in Australia and I met most of you for the first time in the past 20 minutes. And engaging in practices similar to what Renee guided us through that make us feel present, that feel pleasurable, that feel intentional. And I was reflecting on how does the nervous system feel when it's in a place of joy? There's a sense of opening, a levity, an optimistic quality that makes me feel like I can change the world. And a quality so needed amidst these current socio-political times. Joy is a strategy. It is the fuel for our collective strength, and it's backed by neuroscience.
Yes. And joy also strengthens our voice because it reminds us that we belong, that our expression matters, and that confidence is born not from doing more, but being more fully ourselves.
Mhm. And I love that image of Preena dancing. It brings me so much joy. So, I wanted to specifically dial into the joyful art of voice in public speaking. I've been a professional public speaker for 10 years. I was super shy as a kid. I grew up undocumented, didn't say a word in meetings, was afraid of talking and making friends even as a kid. And whilst I was co running a VC backed startup, I discovered my gifts. I began to own my voice. But then 5 years later, this was in 2020, amidst the backdrop of COVID-19, and want to name this may bring up evocations for people. And so feel free to take care of yourself as I'm sharing. We will try to be really high level in the share. This is my father. And he and I were in a really heartbreaking accident that led to his tragic passing and my own survivorship. And when he passed and I could no longer hear him speak, it impacted my own capacity to speak on stage, especially when I so longed to hear his voice. And what we're going to share are practices rooted in both neuroscience and lived experience on how to keep speaking, even amid some of the most devastating emotional geographies we may encounter in life. Thanks for taking a moment to honor the muertos, the dead. Hi, Dad. Mhm. Public speaking, we know, is a critical leadership skill. Whether we're pitching for investment, fundraising for a nonprofit, interviewing for a role that we care about.
Yet 77% of the general population fears it. And of course, you've probably heard the statistic there that more people fear public speaking than dying.
Yeah. And just like show of hands too, feel free to be vulnerable right over chat. If this is something that you also fear, I definitely still do. I was feeling some butterflies before this session. And
Yeah.
no, you're not alone. And part of what we do when we start to talk about the hard things is to normalize it and realize, hey, other people share this in honoring our shared humanity. Part of what we mean when we talk about the joy of public speaking is authenticity, a big theme of this conference, and the capacity to come home to ourselves, to be seen, to see, to take up space, to feel like we have the right to take up space. And we chose this image in part because it's when queer marriage passed in 2015 in the States, which is currently under attack. And what happens when we collectively heal, when we collectively use our voices for love and liberation, we come home to ourselves And we come home to each other and we change laws, we change practices, we bring our countries and our communities together. Hmm. Happy Pride, y'all. And all of this is rooted in a lot of really nerdy research, but also a lot of lived experience, really designed around communities that have been historically excluded from stage, people of color, queer people, neurospicy people, people who face sexual violence, big T trauma, and remembering you deserve to be here, you deserve to take up space. So our principles are very simple, rooted, inspired by nature, mind, body, culture, the culture forming the roots of how we speak, how we communicate, our bodies, our nervous systems, like the trunk of the tree and the branches, the leaves, our mind, and developing a healthier relationship with all these elements to come home to ourselves and heal towards joy.
So let's think about and imagine if you had to present a social issue close to your heart, or if you have an upcoming social issue close to your heart that you will be presenting um, or speaking on. How does that feel? How does that feel in your body when you think about that, when you think about speaking?
You can feel free to write over chat what might be come up for you. Maybe it's some sweaty palms, racing heart, maybe excitement. And something I've been ruminating on is how, in some ways, the word nervous isn't accurate to actually describe the feelings and emotions that emerge before a moment of public speaking and getting to more specific language around these emotional states. So, the mind, reframing the mind and healthy relationships. I see from Susan, I feel passionate, but won't worried I won't get the words right, right? There's the perfectionism. Hmm. Seeing from Rochelle, imposter syndrome. And Renee, depends on how I feel, if I'm tired, racing heart. And welcoming those emotions. They're part of what makes us human. It means we care. Seeing from Deanna, anxiety that I'm going to make a mistake. Thank you all for this beautiful vulnerability. Preena, if you want to jump in to read anything or any noticings.
Yes, Suzanne mentioned she feels passionate, but then worried she won't get the right words out. I absolutely feel the same sometimes. Um, and yes, nervous isn't cutting it. It's a buzzy feeling of excitement and desire to connect and passion.
I think it's also often shame, which is something we don't talk about, and this worthiness to be seen. And we're going to talk a bit more about the nervous system shortly and how that puts pressure on the subconscious and the automatic nervous system. Yes, of course. Oh, this is healing for me to read too, y'all.
Mhm.
Joy. So we're going to start with the mind, which is often where we start in our Western society, and we are going to move to the body and cultural elements. And coming from a holistic lens, how do we build a healthy relationship with our thoughts? So, y'all are on point. The imposter syndrome, the inner critic, according to our research, is one of the most cited public speaking challenges. Sounds like we all have one. I'm also just reading so much richness in the chat. I feel confident and not consciously stressed, but almost always overthink in both the buildup and afterwards. So, tendency for overwhelm and exhaustion in the days following, invisible stress, if you will. Right. Sometimes we're not even aware that something is connected to the public speaking moment. So we talk a lot about pre, during, and after care when we're sharing so much of our energy. I know after this, I will probably play my sound bowls and go for a walk to really take care of any inner criticky bits that may have emerged. And maybe we can take a breath going into this. If you want to also practice an expression of self compassion, you can hold yourself. I think this audience doesn't need to be told this is maybe a little hippie and awkward, but even so, it can feel that way. And know that these gestures of somatic care help us drop into the mind more deeply. So maybe your inner critic says to you, you're not good enough, Preena.
I don't deserve to be here. I'm afraid of making a mistake. I'm going to get fired if I say this thing. I have to be perfect.
Hmm. Maybe
What
there's other thoughts if you want to write them over chat and be witnessed and held and cared for in your inner critic. We see you, we hear you. And y'all probably know we're not intentionally talking about the hard things to make anyone feel bad, but part of the role of healing towards joy is being able to come from a place of liberation. So we're not controlled by these thoughts when we actually let them merge into the surface with both care and compassion. I'm seeing from Renee, I can relate to this too. Hmm.
So, as we go deeper, I wanted to share a concept from a wonderful book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. You may have heard of it. Great cantadora, storyteller, and psychoanalyst, Dr. Estes. She talks about descansos, and Mel beautifully. We were able to witness the descanso of her father, and these are memorial sites. These are sites that represent and we pay reverence to a life loss. So I want to invite us to think about where we've lost our voice along the way. Where are those places in our lives where we can grieve losing our voice?
And I'm seeing over chat. Thank you for being so vulnerable, y'all. Thank you, Rachel, as an autistic person and perfectionist. Maybe the loss is the fear that people won't understand, making your message understandable, being authentic. And so if we don't fit the normativity, there can be a loss of voice, a descanso, and knowing we all have it in some way, shape, or form. Mm.
And so you can reflect within or with us. Where has your voice been silenced, numbed, choked, repressed? Whether that was from violence, whether that was self sabotage, whether that was from your nervous system being frozen, all the thoughts, the inner critic that comes up, all those spaces, because grieving these lost voices is a part of the journey towards joy. And when we honor those parts of ourselves and our communities um, that have been silenced, we create space for something new to sing through us.
I'm seeing from Susan as well when others over empower our voice or make us question ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Abuses of power frees them. Thank you, Julie. Thank y'all for your realness. And just knowing there are ways out of this. Part of we're doing this work is to talk about the hard things to move towards joy, to move towards integrity and liberation.
And
One of our,
after,
oh, go
oh,
ahead,
sorry.
Priya.
After allowing yourself to do this, one of the things we've learned in expressive arts therapy is being able to creatively pay reverence to places in our lives, and this is one way, having a moving altar, a living altar, um, to support yourself on this journey.
And seeing through chat, my son lost his voice when his nervous system takes over. From Renee, losing your voice younger through trauma, but then having that capacity to beautifully re advocate, which I've seen you and so inspired by you, Renee, and how you do this. And just naming that you don't have to be spiritual or religious. This altar is basically probably something you're already doing if you have collections of objects in your window sills or on your mantles. And these can be different objects that you collect that start to represent that direction to reclamation of voice and healing towards joy. I'm seeing so much beauty and richness in this chat. Do you want to read the last couple ones, Preena, from Rochelle and Adam?
Sure. Rochelle stated that, having someone consistently talk over me in a stern authoritarian tone during meetings made me shut down and lose my voice. I had to really consciously notice when it happened and try a lot of strategies to overcome this. 100%, I have experienced that definitely. And Adam stated when faced with exclusion, experienced this mostly during bullying in high school and been fortunate not to have faced that much in the workplace. Although when he has, it's been totally disabling um, and manifests a lot in chronic pain and burnout. Definitely, our body keeps the score. And I think it's Deanna or Diana. I lose my voice when I'm misaligned internally and feel forced to operate in a way that is in conflict with my values. Yes.
And just I want to take a moment just to like let those land, those beautiful stories, and wish we could give even more sacred reverence, but just a small moment of silence to already acknowledge what we're witnessing so beautifully over chat. Thank you all. In a way, this is like a living altar we're creating over Zoom. And even chat can be this expression of an altar and honoring the sacredness of what is shared. Even an emoji, I'll say, y'all, goes a long way in witnessing what someone's written. Grieving our lost voices is healing towards joy. I hope you're feeling that already through this session. And this for me has already been so meaningful. I've already achieved my objective of inspiration. So thank y'all. We're going to move into the nervous system, the body, the breath. Let's take a deep inhale through the nose, exhaling out through the mouth. Your sighs, your sounds, your voice welcome. The body, like a sound bowl, I play ukulele, the piano, the flute, is a powerful instrument for transformation, for connection, for social change, love, one of my favorite values. And we can tune it like an instrument and begin to prepare it to speak. The nervous system and bottom up regulation, I'm sure a lot of y'all know, might be preaching to the choir, but just in case, things like deep breathing, singing, touch, dance, from the ground up, so from our feet up in a way, is the fastest way to a calm nervous system. So, versus telling ourselves to be calm through the mind, literally doing things that make us calm. And so, the vagus nerve, the biggest cranial nerve in the body, connects to all the major organs of public speaking, the lungs for more air capacity, the heart, the connection to others, attuning to your audience, the stomach, intuition, creativity, releasing trauma. And this is a practice that we can access at any moment. We're going to introduce some specific, tangible exercises to support you. And we use the word intentionally harmonize versus regulate, as this isn't about control. This is about creating a symphony within the body, even if we may be experiencing internal inclusion or the inner critic, welcoming the emotions like the poem Burmese Guest House, which is about welcoming every emotion that arrives in your home.
So humming activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and um, you can tell, where the vibrations are in your body when you hum. So it's such a beautiful technique for beginners, and it's something that you may already do.
You want to invite a demo, Preena, or vocal demo?
Sure. We can go to the next slide. I think we'll be talking about vocal toning in the next one. So when we use vocal toning and use different vowels, there's different areas in the body that that get activated. And so, if you want to take a moment, you can unmute if you feel comfortable. And if you don't, you can still try it. But notice what happens in your body when you hum. Mm. Where do you feel that in your body? Notice what happens if you use your vowel sound, ooh, ooh. And how about E? E. And how about ah? Ah. Toning can definitely be directed in specific areas of your physical and emotional body to support you before or after whatever it is that you're speaking about or doing.
And truly can make a difference. I was feeling a little nervous introducing myself recently, and I just hummed for 5 seconds quietly to myself, and that it immediately assuaged any strong emotions that were arising. And so I invite you to just to try it once more. Let's do some breaths just to ground into it a bit more. Taking a deep inhale, breathing in care and compassion. And exhaling maybe any self-doubt, shame. Another deep inhale through the nose, exhaling out through the mouth. And on this third exhalation, without judgment, just care, doesn't matter what it sounds like, what it feels like, and trying out humming again, taking a deep inhale through the nose. Mm. Mm. And just notice how that feels. I recently did this with a group of tech folks, 500 of them, and I was so astonished to hear all of them hum, and it was really beautiful in a large group. And so these are techniques you can actually do to ground the room as well. It's very touching and magical to have everyone hum at the same time. Oh, seeing belly less enthused. Yeah, that's okay too. Might not be everyone's cup of tea. So we're starting to build on the practices of breath, of humming, of vocal toning, and singing is an additional practice. It cuts through the natural defense mechanisms of the mind. It really gets to the soul self. It moves through big T trauma and has the shortcut to the essence of who we are that precedes the trauma. And with my father's passing, this was the only way I could keep doing my job. It reduces stress, cortisol, and releases the happy hormones of endorphins and dopamine from a neuroscientific perspective. So you will be invited to sing, encouraged but not obligated. And the song that I'll invite you to sing is just the beginnings of Lift Every Voice and Sing, a song that has been incredibly resourcing for me. And you can sing it at any pitch that you want, doesn't need to be perfect. You'll see my voice is not perfect, and just singing from the heart. Ooh, let's take some breaths though before we sing. Let's take a deep inhale through the nose, exhaling out through the mouth, maybe shaking anything out, inhaling through the nose, exhaling out through the mouth. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Lift every voice and sing, y'all. Lift every voice and speak. Mm. Thank
Rachel mentioned Kirtan has been the most incredible practice for finding my voice and highly recommend, even for those who aren't singers. And that's absolutely true. I was definitely singing Kirtan right before this. Your voice is connected to the self. That's what our music therapy mentors always said.
And singing, for me, begets vulnerability, provides inner resourcing and love. And I love singing Can't Help Falling in Love with You as an homage to myself. And I keep being vulnerable, even if it's hard, sometimes painful, because I see the impact at scale. And seeing people who are C-suite leaders talk openly about grief, trauma, mental health, and that singing begets vulnerability, and vulnerability begets vulnerability. Mm. I'm seeing a lot of fun things over chat. Aw, dog with a loud voice. That's okay. Part of this is also the unlearning. Even if you just do it in the shower or in your car, just sing for yourself, y'all. And lastly, culture listening.
So, as Rachel already mentioned earlier, psychological safety begets powerful speakers. When we feel safe, our nervous system, allows authenticity to emerge.
And it's also according to Google and Harvard Business Review, the highest performing teams have this in common: psychological safety, the capacity to take risks, to be vulnerable, to be real.
Yes, and listening, when we truly listen to ourselves, to others, to even silence, we activate the neural pathways of empathy and connection. It Listening, then becomes an act of healing. It reshapes our thoughts. It creates capacity, and we can really be changed by what we hear.
Hmm. And we want to invite a new expression of public speaking groups, which are often focused on be more confident, just baptism by fire. You'll figure it out and bring a more trauma informed approach rooted in safety. And so, as we had shared before, normalizing imperfectionism, it's okay to make mistakes. And starting small before getting people into large groups to start to really build comfort and safety around the voice, creating a value of safety and listening, normalizing play, joy, and rooting into what people care about, what people can't help but speak on that they're so passionate about. Making speaking invitational, as we've seen so beautifully demoed in this conference so far. And a lot of times when I work in non-trauma informed contexts, people are like, what? A public speaking group where speaking is invitational? But we don't know what traumas, what different experiences people have had that make it difficult to speak, and we never want to feel like it's forced on someone and create a re-traumatization. And so really coming from a place of choice and authenticity. And lastly, practice, which is so important, that we don't want to just hum before the big keynote presentation, but really try to do that in everyday life and practice. And we wrote a thought leadership piece, which Renee will be sending a link about. But just a reminder, as I was struggling so much with my voice in past years, and the onus felt like on me to be perfect and charismatic and just hide my trauma and my mental health. But it's our responsibility as leaders, as citizens of the world, to help people feel safe and supported, regardless of how they present, perform, if they feel nervous or anxious. This feeling that I've got your back, we're with you. I've got your back, we're with you.
And so, in summary, coming home to ourselves through our mind, body, and culture is truly a reclamation of belonging. It's the journey of remembering that healing is not only personal, but it's ancestral and it's communal. And when we can align through thought and sensation and story, um, we really give way to the fullness of who we are, and be able to express ourselves from that embodied and connected and free state.
Mhm.
And of course, as Mel mentioned, practice is so important. Practice and the hurdles that we overcome along the way. You know, every repetition, every setback, every um, forgot a sentence. It's an invitation to deepen with self trust and resilience. The resilience that comes from consistent practice, that mastery isn't about perfection. It's about showing up with courage, allowing each of these obstacles to shape us into stronger and more grounded versions of ourselves.
I love that. Thank you, Preena. And we'll leave you with the words of my father, regardless of how you have felt on your journey so far with us or your public speaking voice. And he wrote to me once in a card before his passing: "You were born to be loved and accepted. You were born to be loved and accepted." And I would like to add that nothing has changed. You all were born to speak on stage.